Fall camp starts today, but we got a lot of news to get to first. The Frogs have landed another quarterback for the 2025 class, possibly an upgrade of the coaching staff, and yes, all those big questions as the Frogs hit the field in their first practice. All that's coming up next here on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right. Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us wherever you listen to podcasts, your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe on that as well. We're back to daily episodes starting today because the TCU Horned Frogs are hitting the field. They're going into fall camp, and I expected to come into the show talking about, okay, what are the big questions, storylines, all the things that we've kind of obsessed over the last 6 months or so. It's all culminating in actually putting the pads on. I'm sure they'll be in shells for the first couple of days, but seeing some real results leading up to that game against Stanford. But it turned out to be a really busy news day, sort of off the field. And in one standpoint, it was a recruiting news. Adam Schobel, which is a name you probably recognize. I did an episode about him last week that TCU, after Ty Hawkins, who was long committed to the Frogs, he flips to SMU as part of that 2025 class. And so they suddenly have this void at quarterback. What are they going to do? A lot of the top-rated QBs in the country already committed, but Schobel is a guy who has great connections at TCU. His dad, Matt, played tight end for the Frogs. His uncle, Aaron, was a defensive end. Both those guys went on to have really good NFL careers. And then his cousin, John, is a linebacker at Columbus High School. Both of them play at Columbus right now. And John's actually going to move over to the edge rusher position, it appears, at the next level. But he's currently committed to the 2025 class. So all sorts of connections for Adam. He's the 19th rated quarterback in the country, according to 247 Sports. And today on Twitter, he announced that he is flipping his commitment from Oklahoma State to TCU. He said on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, I have been a TCU fan since the day I was born. And when they called, I quickly realized it was an opportunity I couldn't turn down, an opportunity to play alongside my cousin and my parents' alma mater. With that being said, I'll be signing with TCU in December. So first off, this is just a big win for the staff because honestly, when Ty left, now one good thing about it was even though it was somewhat late in the process for that quarterback position, because as I said earlier, a lot of these QBs are committing earlier in the process themselves. But when he made that decision, it was a big shockwave, and you sort of thought, okay, he had been the centerpiece of this class. Are they going to regroup? What are they going to do moving forward? And honestly, do they have the time to build a relationship with someone? And when Adam's name started coming up, it didn't surprise me because that was the first thought I had. Like, okay, you got a legacy QB who's right down the road in South Texas, and why not, see if there's something there. My biggest question was, one, he's more of a prototypical pocket passer. He's got great size for what you would consider like a quarterback, 6'4", 190 pounds, can sling the ball around. Now, I feel like to a certain extent, too much was made of that because a lot of people said, well, he's not your typical Kendall Briles type of QB in that he's not super mobile. Like, that's not what he's going to do. He's going to throw the football around and make things happen with his arm, and he's more of a pocket passer. But he's not a statue back there. I mean, he moves around pretty well, and like everyone else in the country, they're running a lot of spread concepts, a lot of RPO stuff, and so I'm sure he's very familiar with some of the things that they want in this offense. And, of course, the guy they have behind center right now in Josh Hoover is also not someone who's considered much of a burner. Now, that could change. Maybe we'll see more of that this upcoming season. We know part of that was just a simple fact that they didn't have anybody behind him last year. So it didn't really make sense to use him in the running game. But all that being said, that was one thing that people were like, I don't know if that's going to work. And then secondly, and I don't say this in a negative way, but you just also had to wonder what the Schobel family kind of thought about how the recruiting process had gone so far, and if they were upset that he wasn't really their first choice in some ways. I mean, they had Ty Hawkins committed, and because of that, they weren't showing a ton of interest, I would assume, in Adam Schobel. And I don't blame him for this. I mean, I expect him to believe he's the best, and there's probably a part of him that was like, well, why is this guy getting an opportunity or getting an offer or getting a chance to commit when I have all these connections to TCU and it would make sense for me to come play there? Like, what's the disconnect? But it sounds like once they made contact and started saying, okay, let's build this relationship, you're our guy, that obviously all those family ties and the chance to play with his cousin, and I'm sure, some NIL money as well made a huge difference. And he said, okay, I'm going to go to TCU. Now, he's had kind of an interesting recruitment. He was committed to Baylor originally, then flipped to Oklahoma State, and then finally flipped to TCU. But again, I don't think you can say enough positive things about how quickly TCU pulled this off, and just the fact that, okay, a guy left, and this is what big time programs do. And with Sonny Dykes, one of the things we expected, it was one of the big reasons why he's here, honestly, is that he has a great understanding of recruiting the transfer portal and then just recruiting in general, and knows like how to build a roster. He did that super well at SMU. So a 4-star QB, you lose him across town to somebody else, and what do? You regroup and you go get another 4-star quarterback. So just a great recovery by them, and now you're back in the top 25 in the recruiting rankings. And to me, it's not really about like the commitment's good from that standpoint, and it keeps the momentum going. Because I said, after everybody got locked in, and TCU did a lot of building in the month of July and or June, I guess I should say, and your thought was like, well, there's not a lot of room left, right? So it's going to be pretty quiet, you would think, on the recruiting front. But then, bang, they go find somebody who's going to fit the mold. And I think Adam Schobel possesses a lot of great qualities with his ability to throw the football. And, now the question is like, on one hand, it's great competition. On the other hand, it makes sort of for a crowded quarterback room, because you have Josh Hoover, Ken Seals, Haas Haney, and Adam Schobel, who will all be potentially on campus next year. But I think one good thing about it is they're different QBs and the skill sets that they can bring to the table. And so TCU can get some different looks at, okay, what does our offense look like if it's more predicated on Josh Hoover or Haas Haney or Adam Schobel, who's who's a guy with a live arm and can just sling it around and make big time throws. The ball placement, the accuracy, all those things look really good when you watch the tape and see what he can do. So a nice job recovering by Sonny Dykes and the coaching staff, and sort of saying, okay, let's regroup and get after it after losing, Ty Hawkins to another school. And it helps that, again, you're taking them from one of your Big 12 rivals. They've done a really nice job so far in this class of winning battles against Texas Tech, winning some battles against Baylor, now Oklahoma State. Like, the schools that you want to compete against and beat in the new look Big 12, they've been able to do that at times. And it gives me hope about what their strategy is and what they're trying to build towards the future moving forward. Another player that they landed, this is actually for the 2026 class. So, yeah, that's starting. I mean, I know it feels like a long way away, but Brock Boyd, a wide receiver from South Lake Carroll. He's a 4-star composite on 247 Sports. He's a 3-star prospect on 247 Sports, but 6'1", 165 pounds. So far, his offer list: Arizona, obviously TCU, which is where he landed, Baylor, Arkansas State. So some pretty good teams there, and still early in the process for him. They go ahead and get him locked in. So that's exciting as well. Also runs track and field, which you would always expect from a skilled player that's going to play at the next level. So a busy weekend and a busy Monday for TCU recruiting as they find a way to get that quarterback that they want or need for this 2025 class and landing Adam Schobel. And then they also get their first commit for the 2026 class in Brock Boyd, the wide receiver from South Lake Carroll. And now you start seeing, okay, what is this iteration of TCU football look like moving forward? What are they going to be able to do? How are they going to be able to make this happen as they go through the fall and into the summer? And they got a lot of commits right now, but you also do wonder, the QB is going to get a lot of attention. Are there some guys that look at this commitment and say, hey, Adam Schobel is the type of QB that I want to play with, the type of player I want to be around, and maybe it entices some of them to make that move as well. That's something to watch too. But I can't really say enough about how well they attacked this after losing their guy. And I think they ended up landing their guy. And it's awesome that, in this world of NIL, They've got two legacy players back-to-back at the quarterback position with Haas Haney and now Adam Schobel. It's pretty rare in this day and age, but it's a nice thing for TCU, and I'm glad that ultimately they said, okay, maybe it didn't work out early in the process, or the stars didn't align to where both of us were ready to make this happen. But now, TCU said, okay, let's go get this guy. And he was able to say, hey, let's make this happen. And I'm excited to be a Frog. So Adam Schobel, QB commit for 2025, landing with TCU as they regroup well after losing Ty Hawkins to SMU. When we come back, we'll talk about a potential addition to the coaching staff. That's next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Before we do that, though, I do want to talk about one of our great sponsors. We mention them often because they've been good to us. FanDuel, it's the place to go if you're trying to make some money on sports. You love them. You love sports so much you never want them to stop. But we're in the dog days of summer here. Football's coming, though. And all this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus on a daily basis. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And, proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Again, download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Boost our bonuses every day this summer. Go to FanDuel. Make it happen. All right, so a coaching staff note, which kind of late in the game for this, but apparently TCU is targeting a former Big 12 football coach in Dana Holgorsen. According to Football Scoop, and I believe 247 Sports actually had this first. Defensive coordinator Andy Avalos is new in town, and offensive coordinator Kendall Browse is going into year 2. Dykes is reportedly looking to add some more veteran experience to the staff. Former Houston, West Virginia coach Dana Holgorsen is being targeted for a consultant role with the Horned Frogs. Head coach in Morgantown, head coach at Houston. He went 61-41 with the Mountaineers. He won 12 games in 2021 with the Cougars and then won 8 in 2022. Last year, that first jump up to the Big 12 was a rough season for Dana, and he got let go after the season. They ended up hiring Willie Fritz. And some people might groan and say, well, man, he had a rough tenure as a head coach there towards the end. But I think this is a really positive development. I mean, it's veteran experience on the staff. It's a guy that has done play calling before, has done it at a super high level, understands the offense. And it's just a different set of eyes, right? Like there's not going to be a ton of pressure on him to be involved in the day-to-day operation. So he can laser focus on, if they want him to focus on scouting, he can do that. If they want him to focus on just their own playbook and what's working, what's not, he can do that. If he wants to take kind of a big picture view and say, hey, this is what we need to incorporate in the offense, he can do that as well. We've talked a ton about the defense and the makeover they're going to have with a new DC. This is also a critical year for Kendall Briles, and Sonny Dykes has talked about it. They just weren't efficient enough on offense last season. Part of that was offensive line play. Part of that was a quarterback change. But bottom line was they didn't get it done, and they have to improve this upcoming year. So adding someone like Dana to be another voice in that room, to be a consultant, an analyst, is a big deal. And this is what big-time programs do. Georgia, Alabama. Like Alabama kind of became like coach rehab for a while when Saban was there. What I mean by that was if you washed out as a head coach, then you would go and join Alabama staff as an analyst, and you would do that for a while. And then once you kind of got your sea legs under you, you would get another opportunity. And I would think for Dana Holgorsen, that's what is going on here. He's looking for a place where he can go and take some notes and figure out like, okay, Gary Patterson talked about this when he went to Texas. And I'm sure he's doing the same thing at Baylor, even though it pains us to see it as Horned Frog fans. He wants another chance to be a head coach again. And so he's measuring, okay, what did we do at TCU well when I was the head man there? What are they doing differently? Do I like this? Do I not like this? Do I feel like this is working? Do I feel like it's not? And he's getting a good perspective on what college football is in the modern era. And so Dana Holgorsen can do that. Also, in 2017, the current TCU head coach, Sonny Dykes, was in a similar situation. He went to Cal. It didn't work out. He learned some lessons there, didn't have a ton of resources, ends up parting ways with them, and decides, you know what, I'll spend a season at TCU learning under, Gary Patterson, that staff at the time. Play caller was Sonny Cumbie, which I really like Sonny. I think he's a great dude. I think he's a sharp guy. I didn't necessarily think he was the most dynamic offensive coordinator in the world. But when he had Sonny Dykes on his staff as an analyst, I'm not giving Sonny all the credit. That team was really good. They found an identity on offense. They were going to pound the rock, let Kenny Hill, kind of manage the game, make plays with his feet, make throws when he needed to. And that was a good offense. I mean, it wasn't a high-flying offense, but they found their niche. They found what works for them. And I think last season, the biggest issue for TCU's offense was there just simply wasn't much of an identity. You didn't know what they did well. You didn't know what they wanted to hang their hat on. And so they kind of got in this cycle of they could put up some big numbers, they could do some things well, but when it came down to it, they weren't finding their groove, getting in the end zone, extending drives, playing complementary football. And so Dana can be an asset with that. Now, one thing to watch here, to my knowledge, he's currently helping with Matt Rule's staff in Nebraska. So I don't know exactly what his title is or what his role is there. Now, I mean, this would be a chance to get back in the state of Texas. He worked with Sonny on that Texas Tech staff back in the day. He knows Kendall Briles well. So all those things would point to, yeah, this would be a good fit for him. Again, kind of late in the game to make that change, but an off-the-field analyst consulting type role is different than being, the inside wide receivers coach somewhere and the day before fall camp starts getting there. If they can pull this off, though, I think it's a great deal for TCU because, he can add a lot to the staff without having his hands in the day-to-day operations, right? He can just kind of focus on some specific things and give them some help where they need it. And I believe it would be a big boost for what they want to do moving forward on offense. So it's something to watch. Dana Holgorsen potentially being on staff next season with the TCU Horned Frogs as an analyst, friends with Sonny Dykes, would make a ton of sense. Just got to, I guess, get the logistics figured out and make it happen. When we come back, we'll wrap things up with fall camps here, and it's starting, and so we'll talk about some of the big questions that are on the mind of Horned Frog fans as we get going. Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Man, I love it when a sponsor gets back with us. They were here for a while, then we lost them, but they're back now as football season approaches. Ibotta. If you've been wanting to find a creative way to get rewards, to get cash back, Ibotta is the way to go. Sandals, sunscreen, snack for the kids. What all these have in common, you're probably buying a ton of them again in the summer, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta to get cash back on all your purchases when you stock up on all your summer essentials. Are you taking a dream vacation this summer but dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you get cash back on all your purchases so you can spend more time making memories of summer and less time dreaming about them. It's a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries, beauty supplies, even toys, so they can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 a year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. You can save with over 2,400 brands and shop with over 1,000 realtors, including your favorite grocery store, Lowe's, Macy's, Best Buy, and more. It's time you joined over the 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for just trying the app by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back. And again, use that code LOCKEDONCollege for that $5 cash back coupon immediately. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store. And again, that promo code is Locked On College. Another great sponsor who's getting back on board with us. Warmer, sunnier days are ahead. Fuel up no matter what the issue is with Factor's no prep, no mass meals. Meet your well summer with a great menu of chef-crafted meals and options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Again, Factor, that's the name of the company. Fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So it's really easy to start. No matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Get the day kick-started with a Factor meal. 35 different meals, 60 add-ons to choose from every week, and new flavors to explore. Again, that's Factor. Check out their wellness meals, easy to use, high protein, everything you need. Factor. We appreciate them for hopping on here on the Locked On Network. Well, practice starts today, and as I said earlier, expected to talk about that a lot, but just so happened that we had a big news day with everything going on with But okay, I mean, we're here now. We got practice going. What are the big questions that are going to be answered over the first few days of fall camp? I think number one, and I'm not alluding to anything here, but it's just always interesting when we talk about college football, does anybody not show up, right? Like, is there someone that late in the process just got scratched because of some unforeseen issue or maybe something the coaches knew about for a while, but honestly they weren't out here sharing it for obvious reasons? So all the transfers, all your recruits, do they all make it to campus? Are they ready to rock and roll and play at a high level? Are there any injuries that could be having effect in week one against Stanford? And then speaking of health and injuries, where is Josh Hoover at, right? Like that's something we've been talking about all summer long. He unfortunately missed time during spring camp, missed all of spring camp, coming off back surgery, but TCU took him to Big 12 Media Days. Sonny Dykes was pretty adamant, like, yeah, this is our guy. This is QB1. We're excited about what he can do this year. So what does he look like early in these practices? Is he throwing the ball well? Because Ken Seals is here, and I mean, he's not going to shy away from trying to make this happen, and he got a lot of chemistry with, these players through those reps that he had. So Josh, I think it's definitely his job to lose, but he does have to prove to a certain extent that he's the guy, and, there's nothing left to question moving forward. Also, one player that I forgot about, I've been talking about the receivers a ton, and honestly, when I list off the names, he just hasn't popped into my mind as much. But Dalen Wright, now, we were super excited about him last year, and then he's got all the physical gifts you want. It didn't translate to the field, but it was really just a health issue. So is he healthy? And can he possibly push? I think it's going to be Savion Williams and Eric McAllister as your two outside receivers. But does he have something to say about that? Can he push those guys just with his ability to make things happen? Because Kane Robb, who does the Golden Gopher show, he covers Minnesota, he told me the thing with Dalen is everybody talked about how special he was and how he was so gifted, and he would make things happen in practice that would just leave people's jaws on the floor, and they would say, man, that is a talented dude. But he just wasn't consistent enough. So can he put it together this year? On the defensive side of the ball, is this the year we finally see the Marcel Brooks experiment really take hold? It seems like that stud linebacker, edge rusher spot is a good fit for him. So is this the year where it really comes together and we see a guy who is the dominant force that we think he could be? Maybe not dominant, but just a factor on the defense. A good situational pass rusher would be a start, right? And then I've talked about it all off season long. Who are the five guys on this offensive line? And is A.J. Ricker going to be shifting players around? How are they going to mix and match to make sure that these players are at their best? That's another huge question as we move forward and look at, what this team is going to be in 2024. But I'm excited. Throw up your hands in the air, celebrate. We've made it, friends. We are not to football yet, but we're to practice, and it's time. Like, things are revving up. In a few weeks, we're going to be watching the TCU Horned Frogs again. And coming off a disappointing season, I just need to see the boys in uniform, right? I need to see them hit somebody. I'm tired of questions and hypotheticals and all the different good and bad things that could happen. I'm ready to see some results. And so let's see how it plays out when TCU hits the field in a couple weeks. But we've made it to fall camp. Congratulations to you, and a lot of news in TCU athletics, as there always is. We'll talk to you tomorrow. It's Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day.